So today I want to talk to you about a really interesting concept that is found all over the world. Here's the thing about spiritual truth. If any real spiritual traditions, the ones that are what I would call um, that have uh, that have roots that go back into prehistory. So these, for me, are the real, authentic forms of spirituality. In my experience, a lot of the spiritual paths that have been created in modern times, and in modern times, I mean in the past 2,000 years, a lot of them do not have um, roots that go back into prehistory. The traditions that go way back, the really ancient traditions, these have power in them. And that's because the farther you go back in time, the more isolated people were. They didn't live in giant empires. And because they lived close to nature, again, farther back in time you go, the more, quote, primitive a society is, they have to learn how to function within the natural world. And so their spirituality is very practical and has to do with survival. The religions that came about, the Abrahamic religions, and even some of the newer supposed um, magical traditions that have come up since then, in my experience, I, they don't have the same power, and that's because religions in the age of empires is about controlling people. It's not about connecting and surviving in the natural world. So it's important to understand that. So I'm going to be talking about some things, and what I was going to say earlier was that you find if something is a legitimate tradition, what you will find is that the truths that it reveals will be found in other traditions, but they may have different symbology, different mythology surrounding it, but it's still the same. And so this is one of the reasons I'm a syncretist, is because I'm interested in the science of spirituality. I use the word shamanism very loosely. Shaman is actually a Siberian word, and it refers to the priests of the Siberian religion. The indigenous Siberian religion is an animist religion, which means that they believe that everything has a soul, and that the job of the spiritual practitioner, the priest, priestess, is to be able to communicate with all things, everything, and everything has a soul, a car, a book, a computer, my hat, the sun, the clouds, animals, spirits, ideas, thoughts. Everything has uh, everything has a spirit that can be communicated with. So that is what shamanism loosely translates as. A lot of people have complete misunderstanding about what that word means. I won't get into that, but that's what I'm talking about when I use the word shamanism. So in here, I ask, what are the similarities between Viking and Hawaiian shamanism? And so I want to talk to you about a couple of different things. I want to talk to you about a practice called Ho'oponopono. I think I said it right. And I want to show you how that is what is taught in the ancient pre-Christian European shamanism of my ancestors, and the word Wyrd, which we still use today. We still use the word Wyrd. And so when I compare these two practices and phrases together, Wyrd and Ho'oponopono, you're going to get an even deeper understanding of what Wyrd is. Wyrd, Wyrd. Wyrd means that which has been woven. And in the mythology, the web of Wyrd, which is everything, the web of Wyrd is everything that is created: space time, what we call three dimensions. Space time. You can't have space without time. Um, this is Wyrd. It's not just fate, it's not just the will of the gods. It is much more than that. And it is the three strands of what we perceive as time: the present, the past, and the future. And these three strands woven together create the web of life force energy that we experience. And so everything is life force energy. Everything has a everything has a soul. Everything has intention. I've got this book right here, this Vedic astrology book. This Vedic astrology book holds itself together by its own intention. And so that means that everything in the universe, rock, tree, person, animal, computer, has destiny, and it has a path that it must live through. And so everything takes on an identity about itself. And anyway, so let's talk about these two things. So Wyrd, very very briefly, Wyrd, the web of Wyrd, is in the present moment. So the present moment, which is called Verdandi, which means immediacy, means coming into being. The ever present now. You're always in the now. You're never in the past or the future, unless it's a thought process. It's an abstract thing, the thought, the past and the future. There's only the present. And in the present moment, each moment is being created out of nothing, out of emptiness, what my ancestors called Gnungagap, which means the yawning chasm. Gnungagap, the yawning chasm, emptiness, the void, represents not nothingness, but pure, undifferentiated potential. It's what a nuclear bomb is. A nuclear bomb has a huge amount of energy because they're taking the unmanifested energy potential within an atom and splitting it. And so once you do that, there's huge amounts of energy. So there's huge amounts of energy around us all the time. And each moment, everything in the universe continues to manifest itself from nothing, based on the intentions of all of the energies around it. And so you are manifesting through your intention everything. There's a table sitting here in front of me. And so from my perspective, this table is static and it just stays, it stays itself. But in reality, this table is manifesting itself every nanosecond from nothing, based on its own orlog and my intention, my observation of it, and my intention of it to be a table. Those two things continuously create a table. What's interesting is, like, have you ever seen houses that have been left empty? You can live in a house for decades. And, this happened to the house I grew up in. And after my mother moved out of it, and I had lived in it, all of my childhood, and it had been standing for decades. And then all of a sudden, just because nobody lived in it anymore, it started falling apart. The windows started shattering, and it started falling apart. And of course, it was sold to a developer, so it was going to get bulldozed. So it knew its time was up. But that's the interesting thing of when, just living in a house, just your intention will keep it alive. Maybe you've experienced that before. If you've, just it's the interesting thing. Spiders will come into the house because there's not a bunch of things moving around. There's not a bunch of movement. So the bugs come into the house, and it's just, your intention is what keeps things alive, including inanimate objects. So that is Wyrd. Wyrd is the ever-present moment. Everything is manifesting, continuously, seemingly manifesting in time, but it's actually every nanosecond it remanifests itself. And in this ever-present moment, what everything, including you and I, do is we have thoughts, feelings, intentions, assumptions, and beliefs. Those last two are more important than thoughts and feelings. Thoughts and feelings come and go. I know it's a real big thing. People say your thoughts make your life. It's really, that's just far too superficial for me, because thoughts come and go. Feelings come and go. You can indulge in thoughts and feelings. You can keep them running by continuing to indulge in them, and that gives them more power. But your assumptions and your beliefs, in my experience, are far more powerful, because assumptions and beliefs are actions. Thoughts and feelings are things that passively come and go as a result of your reaction to things. They're important, and it is a valuable practice to be mindful of your thoughts, your feelings, and your reactions, and learn to have some, quote, control over them. The more you try and control thoughts and feelings, the crazier they get. So observing them is better than trying to control them. What's more important is your agendas, your desires, your assumptions, and your beliefs. In the present moment, all of these things are happening. When you get an assumption or a belief, this is this, that is that, that is good, this is bad, these people do this, those things, this. Once you have those beliefs, aliens exist and steal our souls, whatever, once you make a belief like that, it's woven. It now becomes a story, which is the past, your origins. The term for past in Wyrd is origins. So that becomes your origin story. I came from this, this happened to me, this happens, this is this, and it becomes lodged in your being. It then, therefore, creates a future that you must live out. And the future is called debt, D-E-B-T, debt. Same as karma. This all happens in your experience, in your present moment. You are doing this all the time. The reality is that we can shift and change. It's very simple, but it's not easy. We can shift and change everything in our reality in this moment. And when you can get to the point where you can master that, you'll no longer need to be human. You'll stop being human. So the present moment, you have thoughts, you have feelings, you have assumptions, and you have beliefs. If it's a long-standing belief, if your linear experience of time leads you to believe that you have believed this for years and years and years, then it becomes entrenched, and you become trapped in the cycle of whatever your belief is. The world is a cold, cruel place, for instance. Everybody's out to get you. Or the universe is an amazing place to live. The universe is a web of life force energy that loves you and wants to give you everything you've ever wanted. These are thoughts and beliefs and assumptions. If you've had one for a long time, in linear time, you can be trapped in that. And that's an illusion as well, but it's a very powerful illusion. You get trapped in that illusion, and then you keep reinforcing the same story about yourself. And that story then creates a future, which is debt. You have to live it out because you created it. It's all your creation. So the beauty of it is that there's unlimited potential by living in the 0 point, the emptiness, the Gununga gap of right now. So this is the belief of my ancestors, and it takes some delving to really understand what it means. And the three goddesses, the three Norns, the three giantesses who weave past, present, and future, which creates the destiny of all beings, including the gods. When you understand that from pure total responsibility, then you see that it's even the gods, I'll say it a third time, even the gods must submit to your creation of Wyrd, your creation of the web of life force energy. So you're even more powerful than the gods. So that's Wyrd. So Ho'oponopono is, as I understand it, and let me just be clear, I don't represent Hawaiian shamanism or HUNA. I only know about it from the information that's available out there. But there's a practice called Ho'oponopono, which, if I understand the translation of it, it means to correct, to make corrections, which I would interpret as creating balance. And the fundamental assumption, the base assumption of this belief is that when you are at 0 point, which is that emptiness, that place where you are in unmanifested pure potential, that limitless infinite power that is in emptiness, that when you are in that place, then God, the spirit, whatever word you want to use, then flows through you, and then you act like a super being, and you have the ability to live in this very magical state of pure balance, of emptiness. And so that is a very very pure place of being, and of course most of us are not in that space. And so the way that it is taught by Hugh Lin, Hugh Lin, I don't know his whole name. He's a practitioner of that. The way he describes it is that in our self, our soul, whatever it is, we have data, DATA. It's like on a hard drive, you have data. And so that there's false data in there. And the data is what controls you, controls your choices, and creates your external experience. And so there is a method, a meditative prayer or method, which people have, if you go looking for it, they'll call it a prayer of forgiveness. And it's not that. That's not what it is. Although it could be used for that, certainly. But you repeat 4 phrases, whatever it is that you want to heal within yourself, which would be correction. So healing the word heal means whole, complete. So to heal something is to make it whole, to make it complete, which assumes that left to itself, everything, everybody, has the ability to be in a state of perfection. It's ideal perfection of what it is, whether it be a rock or a tree or a person or a god or a spirit or an idea or whatever it is. There's a perfection that it has in its essence. But if it has bad data, which is the story, the beliefs, the assumptions that it says about itself, if those beliefs and assumptions are out of balance with its true perfect nature, then that sort of accumulates this false data. And that what I would call also the story. It creates a story, a narrative. And that narrative is what you continuously refer back to, because it's a lot scarier being in emptiness, because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't even know what you're going to be next. Being in emptiness, letting the power of evolution, the power of spirit, the power of whatever you want to call it, truth, pure essence, when that inspiration comes through you, then you're flowing with the spirit, and then you create. But you can't really decide what that is. You can't really, it's not like how we would want to. Like when I say to you, you have the ability, and all the things that I teach, you have the ability to be infinite and be a god. Most of you, and maybe this again, this is my projection. Maybe I should talk about myself. What happens, what has happened, listen to the words I'm using. I'm being very careful about the words I use. What has happened for me in the past is that I have had fantasies of being able to create all of my desires. But as I teach, what it is your soul wants and what you think you want may be two completely different things. Your soul knows what it wants, and it knows what it wants in order to achieve its greatest joy and happiness. And this to me is an extremely important thing to experience. Once you have, then you're able to achieve the life that gives you ultimate satisfaction. But if you operate from false understandings, from fear, from false assumptions, false beliefs, especially fear, false assumptions would be living in a universe that doesn't love you, that doesn't want to provide for you. Living in a universe where you have to accumulate a lot of money or a lot of possessions in order to be fulfilled. Uh, those kinds of things drive us into fear, and then people say, oh, I need to win the lottery, I need to become super rich, I need to be really powerful. And then they find out that those things do not give happiness, they don't give fulfillment. Um, but the truth is, when you live in pure emptiness, you don't know what is going to happen in the next moment. And that's where the power is. That's where the real creativity is. Real creativity is in that place of emptiness. So, Ho'oponopono has a prayer which says, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Now, I don't know, this is a modern, explanation. I don't know what the original was or any of that stuff, but I listen to people who have my respect, who can practically prove what they believe. So, according to what is out there, this doctor who's a psychologist, Hugh Len, he was, and I've been telling this story a while, but I think I've been telling it slightly inaccurately. I was saying that it was in San Francisco, but I don't think it was now. In any case, there was a mental hospital, and there, in this mental hospital, there were um, patients who were extremely violent, insane, violent people, and it was such a violent place that they just had this turnover of a lot of people coming and going because it was just such a crazy, unsafe place to be, and things like having to lock people up or chain them up or something like that, just really extreme ways because they were just so incurable and so violent. And so they had heard about this doctor and his ability to seemingly miraculously help patients. So they came to him and asked him if he would come and and do his magic and work with these clients, with these patients. And so he agreed. And what they did is they set him up in an office and said to him, when are you going to meet with the patients? And he says, oh, I'm never going to meet with them. Just give me their files. I'm like, well, how can you help them if you're not going to meet with them? He said, look, this is the way it is. Just give me their files. This is what I do. So they were desperate, so they did. They just gave him the files of the worst patients. And what he'd do is he would look through the files. He'd go to work every day and he would just look through the files. And magically, these patients started getting better. So much so that they were, things that seemed impossible, like, being released and being able to function. And, they were just healing and becoming more and more healthy and sane. And the doctor wasn't doing anything. He wasn't talking to them or working with them or anything. He was just going in his office and he was looking at the files every day. And so when somebody asked him what he was doing, how did you heal them? He said, oh, I didn't heal them. I healed myself, because everything in my universe is my own projection of my own internal reality. So when he's given the files and he opens them up and he reads what bit somebody's ear off or threw feces at the wall or something like that, once he has a judgment about it, he realizes that that judgment that he has on that person is false data within himself. And it is his lack of balance, his incorrect state within himself. And what he wants is he just wants to find peace and happiness within himself. That won't happen until he changes the way that he views everything inside of himself. And so since everything is a reflection of him, because nothing, from his perspective, nothing is outside of him, everything is inside of him, it's all happening within himself, then what he does is he works to erase the bad data, which is to change his experience within himself, so that when he can look at somebody's file and then not have any judgments about them and see them as being perfect divine essences of who they really are, then he's healed that part within himself. And so his experience is, if I heal that within myself, that has to change too. They have to get better, because everything is within me. So if I change it within me, the outside will change too. So I change the inside first, the outside will follow. And, that's such an amazing concept. And it is exactly what my ancestors taught in terms of what the web of Wyrd is. That in the present moment, in the emptiness, the unmanifested potential of the present moment, you create with your assumptions and beliefs, you create a story which becomes your origin. That's why it's called origin, because you think that's where I came from. You had a bad childhood, right? Let's say you had a very dysfunctional, abusive childhood. You're an adult now. But what you remember is, yeah, when I was a kid, my dad did this and my mom did that, and it did this to me and it damaged. And it may very well be that you are damaged as a result of that story. But if you are able to go and change the story within yourself, you will heal that. Now, this can also be done with people in your life. If people in your life are not functioning the way that you want, they're destructive and harmful, it's because you've attracted it from within yourself. So if you go and heal that within yourself, then that person will heal also. This is, I think, where the teaching for me, again, I'm just trying to figure it out, because that sounds really fantastical to me. I understand the concept. I believe in the concept. I teach the concept. Would I be able to go into an insane asylum, and if somebody gave me the files of insane people, would I be able to heal them simply by, trying to work through and erase the bad data, the judgments within myself? Do I believe that I could do that? And I know that a lot of people, I hesitate on this because I don't like the idea of denial. There's a lot of people out there, including myself. It takes one to know one. There's a lot of people out there who desperately want to heal other people. And you know, like, if you have you been in a dysfunctional relationship with an alcoholic, with an abusive person, with a, you know, a narcissistic person? Have you been in relationships with them? And you think you're going to be able to fix them. If you just love them enough, you can change them. And of course, it doesn't happen that way. Things get worse, and you just end up like absorbing their illness, and then you're in this, you're sick too, and then it's just all ugly and sick and gross. Well, the reason for that is because you're not without agenda. You're not truly in a state of emptiness. State of emptiness says that you have no agenda on any other people, that you accept them exactly as they are without any need to change them. You change your judgment of them within yourself so that you can love them unconditionally. Then and only then do you have the ability to look within yourself to see who they truly are meant to be. Because when it comes to personal relationships, and this can be applied to anything, you have an agenda. You want something from them. And let's talk about dysfunctional relationships for a moment, and why you know, there's denial and then there's this actual practice. Denial says everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be able to fix them, and you know, I'm healthy and they're sick, and I'm going to fix them. But the truth is that you want something from them, which means you feel that you are missing something. So in dysfunctional relationships, when the codependent person, let's say, is with the alcoholic, they want the alcoholic to stop drinking, and if they could just do this, and then they'd love me and it would all be okay. They have a need that they're not fulfilling within themselves, and they want that other person to do it for them. That person can't, because that person is an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever that person is. So they're not capable. But you want them to meet your selfish need, and so you're going to change them, all the while you think you're doing it to help them. No, I love them. I care about them. I wish I could fix them. But that's a total deluded illusion. You are selfishly wanting something from them, and you want to change them so that they can be what you want them, what you feel you need from them. And then therefore nobody can ever be healed in that environment. That's why, you know, if you want to get help, you have to go to a professional. You go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, a mentor, a priest. You go to somebody who doesn't have any agenda on who you are. They don't have any personal need. This is why, by the way, if you are a spiritual healer, you must charge money for your work. Because then you don't have an agenda. That's why you can't get personally involved with clients, romantically, personally. This is why that law is there, for, you know, that people can't, you know, people in those kinds of professions can't have unprofessional relationships with clients, because then they have an agenda. They want something from them. So true Ho'oponopono means that you don't have an agenda on them. You don't need or want anything from them. You only want to heal what's inside of you, so that you can look at them and love them unconditionally and see them in their highest state. So when I listen to Dr. Hugh Lin talk about it, you know, he's very cryptic about it. And part of that is he doesn't want to define things. This is me talking. This is what I see. He doesn't want to define things, because once you define them, then they become data. Like, you know, he was in you can see it online. He's getting interviewed, and somebody throws out an assumption before they ask the question. He says, "So we live in a world governed by words and language." And he says, "Well, if you say so." We didn't let him finish. But it's good, because I get that too. When people ask me questions, they try and control the questions and the answers by throwing out an assumption, which, you know, what they're doing is they're trying to trying to take me hostage in their reality, and you throw out an assumption. And so he I think very smartly stopped and said, when they said, as a fact, we live in a world full, governed by words and language. And he says, well, if you say so, once you say it, it's now the story, and and now it's data within you, and then you are forced to live through that, which is exactly what Wyrd is. You live in the present moment, and the moment that you have a belief or an assumption or you take an action, you create a story, an origin story, which you then must live out. And so the idea is to have that clear so that the only thing that is happening is that you're living in the present moment, in the emptiness of the present moment, and then the inspiration of pure essence, pure being, whatever you want to call it, can then flow through you. And then that's what you follow. So, so it's also, when I heard that the first time about him being able to do that, it was very difficult for me to accept that that was possible, because I had the assumption that he could just go around and do that to anybody, anywhere, at any time. And that is hard for me to accept, for me, because I'm imagining myself in that, and I can't imagine myself being able to do that. Or I wasn't able to imagine myself being able to do that. But this is where karma comes in, I believe, because what he says is that, he turns down a lot of requests for a lot of things. His only focus is to clean the data within himself so he can be at peace with himself and be at one with God, the universe, whatever word you want to use. So if somebody asks him, do you want to do this interview? Do you want to work? He listens to himself, and his intuition will tell him yes or no about that. And so that to me sounds like karma. So that makes it a little easier, because then here's my understanding of karma. By the way, I was looking at a comment, and somebody threw out the word empath, called themselves an empath, as though that meant something, as though they had some special gift, and the burden of having the special gift of being an empath. But let's say, I've used this before, but let's say somebody is a healer. Let's say somebody does have magical healing powers in their hands. That's why I put my hands out there. And let's say they have the ability to put their hands on people and, heal them of horrific illnesses. It's easy for us watching that to go, oh, look at how advanced that person is. They have this gift of healing. But I don't see it that way. It's not that they don't have a gift of healing, they haven't worked at it, but I see that as that's something that they must do in order to balance the karma. Perhaps these are all the people that he healed are people that he's hurt in previous lives. Maybe just with his thoughts, if we go on the whole Ho'oponopono thing. You can think evil on somebody just by thinking, having judgments on them. Maybe that created something within them. I don't like that, because I don't like the idea of anybody having that kind of power over me. And I refuse to live in a universe where people can affect me because they have a thought or a judgment about me. I refuse to let that control me. But what if? What if these are people in this as this healer is healing thousands and millions of people? How do I know that this wasn't some horrific tyrant who killed thousands and millions of people? That opens the door of, maybe Stalin or Hitler in their next lives will be these magical healers, healing thousands and millions of people. Well, those are the souls reincarnated of the people that they harmed. So I don't look at somebody who has those abilities as being anything special. In fact, I think, wow, that guy's got a lot of karma he's got to pay off. And it's a beautiful thing. The universe, doesn't create guilt. You get to feel good every time you then balance out yourself and you balance out the universe. You feel good. You get to pat yourself on the back. I'm a healer. I healed these people. And people clap and they go, "Oh, that's so great. You're a wonderful healer." It would be different. It was like if you had this plaque that said, that you were some horrible dictator that killed millions of people and you have this debt you have to pay off. You're like, "Yeah, you better heal that guy. How dare you? How can you live with yourself?" And we wouldn't get anything done because nobody functions well under guilt and be in judgment. Nobody functions well under that. So the universe has come up with this really wonderful way of balancing things out by making people feel special. And we all clap how special they are. So especially when people, when people want to take on being an empath as being a spiritual gift, my thought is I don't see that as a spiritual gift. I mean, it can be used as one. If you heal yourself, then you can have this gift of like healing or empathy or whatever it is. And as long as you are without agenda, then when somebody comes in your life, your instinct will say, I need to work with this person. So, in terms of me as a teacher, once somebody comes to me as a client, if they come to me as a client, if my first interaction with them is as a client, I take that is my karmic debt to this person. I owe this person a karmic debt. And so I must be professional because my job is to connect them to higher essences. I'm sitting here thinking about it. It could mean that in past lives I did something to hinder their spiritual growth, which means in this life, if they seek me out, if their karmic drive has driven them to see me and to seek me out as their student, as being my student, Freudian slip, as being my student, then that means that I have a karmic responsibility to treat them professionally and get my agendas out of it so that the universe can work through me and be a symbol for them and for their development. And I've proven that to myself. I can think of two instances. Where I have allowed myself to have a personal connection and relationship, and it was disastrous both times. And what I walk away both times is I regret I ruined the ability to be able to help somebody because now I can't. Once you get personally involved and you have a personal agenda, you can't then go back and you can't. The damage is done. So that's why I don't take any pride in being a teacher. And it's interesting, people, I have never once, to my knowledge, I have never once ever asked or said to anybody, call me Sifu, call me teacher, call me master. Never once. And people do. People will, even some people say, I want to call you, what should I call you by? And if I say, you can call me Mike, they say, no, I want to call you teacher. Can I call you teacher? Yeah, you can call me whatever you want. I do sometimes talk about, you have to have more respect for me, but that's not because I personally need the respect, although I have that issue. That's not why I do that. It's because you aren't dealing with me. I am the symbol for your higher teachers, for your ascended masters. And so when you call me sir, or when you are respectful in the way that you deal with me, that is because then you open yourself up to be taught by them. And I am simply the vessel or the symbol for you. I did a video a while back, years ago, trying to show that you heal yourself. And I've really been thinking about that, changing my outlook on that. Because anyway, what I did was I made a video where I lied and I said, I am going to use a very special technique that was taught to me by my masters, and I'm going to do some gazing. And it's okay even if you're just watching this on a video, but I want you to look into my eyes and just empty yourself and let the healing happen The healing is going to come through my eyes, and whatever the hell I said. I don't remember what I said. And then I did. I just stared blankly into the camera. And then I said, now to find out how this healing was done, go to this video. And I gave them a link to go to another video. And in that other video, what I said was, okay, here's what happened. I didn't do anything. It was all your projection. You projected onto me what you needed to heal within yourself. Whatever you felt was your own projection onto me. And that was because I had seen there was somebody who was a gazing healer, and people would come and throw lots of money at this guy to just stand there, and they would look at him, and this audience mostly of women, they would just start crying, and oh God, the feelings that were coming up. That was all their feelings. All that he was doing is he was providing this blank screen for them to project onto them what they needed to heal within themselves. That's how I see it. But I'm starting to rethink that that person has a gift, and it's based on his karma, and those are people that he needed to heal by just, maybe he lived through and I don't know if this is true or not. This would make sense to me, but perhaps in a past life he didn't acknowledge people. Maybe he didn't value people, acknowledge them. Maybe he didn't see them, and this was very damaging to them. And so now in this life, his job is just to see them, just to look at them, and then they get to heal those issues within themselves. And people have asked me, do I want to do distance healing? And I'm considering that. So if you have any thoughts about, would you want to have me do some distance healing for you, or some, do rituals for you or something like that? And of course, everybody want that, but this would be a service, because the way this works is it's a equal exchange. You've got to, if you want something, you've got to sacrifice for it. So I would charge. I don't know what I would charge, but I would charge money for that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and I'm thinking about whether or not that's something that I can do to balance things within myself. So this is some of my thoughts. Ho'oponopono. I really, and I'm having some experiences with it. I'm waiting to see more what will happen, but I have had experiences where, what I think and what I intend about somebody within myself has an immediate reaction in them. And I've found that it has an immediate reaction with people that I'm close to. And so I think this is where the karma comes in. All relationships, whether they be personal, familial, romantic, business, teacher-student, all relationships are karmic. All of them. And whether you're getting together and marrying somebody, or whether you just have a friend, or whether, whatever it is, it means that there is a karmic debt. Maybe a promise. And so this is a great practice. You can't choose your family. I mean, you can, but you can't choose those people that you, at least once you're born, you cannot choose the people that you are related to by blood. You can't choose them. And you're going to be wrapped up with them to some degree or other. And if you have pain or sadness, or if you have empathy. Another one is if you have a really strong empathy for somebody, that's a sign that there's some imbalance. It's what they call codependence. The thought of, if I just do this, if I could do this, I can fix them. A healer never does that. A true healer doesn't do that. A true healer doesn't have an agenda on whether or not the person gets well. If you have this need to fix somebody or have somebody, that's your own garbage within you. You're projecting onto them. And so that is a good sign. If you have that, then it's a good sign to do that practice. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, give me, thank you. What you're doing is you're fixing within yourself. You can have them in your mind, like the vision of them in your mind, but it's you that you're fixing. When you say, I love you, you're saying, I love you. I even love the bad data within myself. I love everything within myself, including the bad data. I'm sorry, meaning I'm sorry that I have infected myself with this false belief of somebody's imperfection. I'm sorry for the judgment that I put upon you to create you flawed and then see that in my life. I'm sorry that I did that to you yourself. Please forgive me. You're asking yourself, your soul, forgive me for doing that to you. You didn't deserve that. Same thing, you could say it to their face. Forgive me for my judgment of you. You didn't deserve that. And then thank you. Thank you is thank you for bringing to my attention the things within me that need to be balanced and have the opportunity to heal myself. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And if you do that and you do that with no agenda, in other words, you don't have an agenda to change them. Well, I want them to love me and I want them to treat me this way and I want them to stop doing that. If you that's that then it's not then you're coming from your selfishness, you're trying to control them, you're trying to get what you selfishly want out of them. You know, this is also a very powerful method found in 12-step work, specifically the inventory, which is about resentments. And you look at how you created resentments within yourself so you can release them. And, you know, my father was, you know, my father died of alcoholism. And for years, I was, you know, now that I'm saying that, I could go and do that and change that judgment I have of him in the past. I could go do that if I wanted. But that's the story. Anyway, so I was very angry with him as a young man because of all the things he didn't do. You know, he didn't take me to ball games. He didn't do this. He used to do this to me and say this to me. And, you know, he did all these mean things to me. And I had all these resentments. And then when I finished that process of looking at my resentment, it dawned on me, that's really unfair of me. He can live however he wants. He wants to kill himself drinking. It's his right. Who am I to say who he should be? That's his business. And once I did that, then I could forgive him. Then it was like, oh, I'm so sorry that he had to live like that. I'm so sorry he wasn't able to enjoy, you know, having the relationship with his son that he could have had. That's too bad. I felt bad for him, which meant that I had given up my agenda of wanting him to be a certain way. Once I gave that up, then I was able to forgive him. But then again, I just want to talk about denial. That's different than just everything is good and I have no judgments against you. And, you know, that's escapism, trying to escape your feelings, or you have guilt about your negative feelings. You feel guilty about your anger, your fear, your sadness, your resentment. So for me, this is me talking now, but I believe this is true. Doing Ho'oponopono, it doesn't mean that you pretend you don't have those feelings. Like you try and imagine, it's not that. You have those feelings and you say to those feelings, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. You apologize to those feelings and to yourself, but you let yourself have them. You don't try and deny them. And so this is my thought. I was just thinking about this because I was looking at Ho'oponopono and really admiring it and seeing the similarities between that and the concept of Wyrd, concept of fate or destiny according to my ancestors. And once again, appreciating and enjoying that true wisdom, you know, in ancient beliefs, that if it's a true belief system, a real ancient belief system, you're going to find those same beliefs in other systems And the fun part is trying to peel back the mythology or the symbolism to find the essence and see, yep, that's the same thing. That's fun for me. I like doing that. So that's it for me now. Courses.thunderwizard.com. See all of my books and DVDs and courses and everything. It's neo.thunderwizard.com is another really powerful tool to get the universe to work for you. A lot of the things we've been talking about. Subscribe, hit the bell button. And I forgot to do this earlier, so I'm going to do it now. I want to say thank you to my supporter. Where is she? Who works at, who has subscribed at thunderwizard.com at the level of producer. And her name is Grace Chandler, and you can go to her website, gracechandler.com. And if you want to support this work and this channel, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe. And when you get there, you're going to see all the different subscription levels and all the amazing stuff you get. You get access to hundreds and hundreds of hours of in-depth, really targeted teaching videos on all kinds of things. So go check out all those things. Supporting the channel isn't just supporting it. You actually get something from it. I really want to make sure that people get real value. So that's it for me. We'll come back to this and talk about this some more, but that's it for now. Talk to you later.